Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today, and we're talking about the end of the 110th General Assembly, is Debra Maggart, who's with the CivicPoint lobbying firm, LLC group, and she's also a former legislator, and Joel Ebert from TENNESEAN. One thing that's been a trend in the legislature, and it contended this time, is the legislature wanting to show that the state is the dominant part of state government, not local governments. And they got into a particular fight that began right before the session started with the city of Memphis. The city of Memphis sold some park property to a newly formed not-for-profit group, and in turn that not-for-profit group took down some of the Confederate monuments down there. It looked like they looked all session to try to find some way to get back at Memphis for that. They finally decided to take about $250,000 out of a request that was in the budget to help Memphis celebrate its bicentennial. Joel, I think you wrote an article that said that might have been, at least in part, perhaps a setup deal?
Some people were saying it was a ruse. I mean, if you look at the way that whole thing played out, the Senate never actually had the $250,000 in its budget. The House did. Normally when you come to the table you have to have that in agreement. So I've heard from some folks, at least you know, Representative McDaniel said to me, we were looking for a way to punish Memphis, and we thought that this was an avenue. And so they ended up doing this on the House floor in a very public way.
Debra, why are Tennessee lawmakers continuing to refight the Civil War every year they come back?
Well, I don't think they're refighting the Civil War. I think where this went wrong is there was an idea out there to try to work something out about actually moving that statue to another location, and I know that there were people working on that out there, and then the city of Memphis, to paraphrase Gerald McCormick, went against the intent and the spirit of the law to do what they did to take down those statues in the middle of the night. So if they weren't, I mean, why did they have to do it in the middle of the night? And we could litigate that over and over, but I do know there was a better way to deal with that.
I think it's really interesting how with this argument they use the spirit of the law argument on certain instances.
Because they couldn't find a letter of the law to do anything.
And on certain instances they don't care about the spirit of the law. I mean, I think, you know, you look at some campaign finance issues and you see how they violate the spirit of the law, but they're following the letter of the law. Along
with moving or taking down Confederate statues, there's also been a fight this last session about moving the body of a former Tennessee president, James K. Polk, and his wife, who've been interred on Capitol Hill for a number of years, and moving them down to Columbia. This has been a move by the people in Columbia to try to boost up the Polk ancestral home, which is down there, even perhaps get the National Park Service to run the facility. Debra, why does the lawmaker want to get in the middle of this? I mean, this has come up a couple different times. It looked like it had failed at one point, but it keeps coming back and resurrecting itself.
It keeps coming back over and over.
Now it's gotten through the legislature, but there's a long way to go before anything.
It sure does. I think it still has 2 more hurdles. It has to go through the Capitol Commission and the Historical Commission as well. They've heard from a lot of people down there. They've heard from a lot of folks that think that's important to move him. I personally like the fact that we have the former president here at the Capitol, because we have his tomb, and then we have a statue about Andrew Jackson there in the middle.
And now a statue of Andrew Johnson, finally.
And we have one of Andrew Johnson. And so, you know, I don't know what they're going to, if they did move it, what would they replace that with? Because we do have 3 presidents from Tennessee, and they're all 3 represented in some way at the Capitol.
As we close out, Joel, there is also a bill that was passed late that banned sanctuary cities in Tennessee, but there don't appear to be any sanctuaries in cities in Tennessee. So what's the purpose of the bill?
I think to send a message to certain cities that were considering sanctuary policies. Last year, some people feared that Nashville was trying to become a sanctuary city. The other portion of that bill requires local law enforcement to comply with what are known as ICE detainers, essentially when the federal government wants local governments to detain immigrants for you know, deportation purposes.
Diane, do you think that'll be enough to satisfy Diane Black, who's running TV spots about this very issue right now?
Well, we outlawed sanctuary cities in 2009 or 10, or 8, maybe. I can't remember.
Make sure they were good and outlawed, is that right?
So we'd already outlawed them. So I did think it was interesting that that bill came up. I think that bill came up because of a special interest group that wanted to use that as what I say is a fundraiser. But you know, we don't have any sanctuary cities. That, you know, when the idea came up with Nashville, the legislature, Speaker Harwell sent a very strong letter, and they didn't do it. So,
Debra Maggart, thank you for joining us. Joel Ebert, thank you for joining us. Get some rest. I know it's been a long session and a long week, and we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. Can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol Review commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.